What's up everybody? I'm making a little demonstration video here to show how you can put dehydrated, seemingly dead mushroom tissue on agar and revive it to an inoculative state that you can throw into your grain and potentially spawn bulk mushrooms out of. So something like this you can turn into a whole mushroom bin. It's not ideal, and I just want to preface this by saying I'm not a mycology expert or anything. I'm very much an amateur in mycology, but it is totally possible to take dead tissue, seemingly dead tissue, and revive it on agar like these plates I've done. It has about a 50-50 chance of having contamination from my estimates right now. What we're going for is something, a product like that, coming off of just dehydrated mushroom tissue. That's a monoculture that I made about 8 days ago and separated it from contamination, and now it's doing great. So that's essentially what the goal we're trying to do. None of this is really my technique, it's more so just general information that I've picked up online, so it's nothing too complicated. I do want to press the dehydrated mushroom tissue down into the agar just a little bit. So I've got some liquid agar here that I'm waiting to come down to temperature so I can pour some new dishes and show you guys sort of a general technique for how to scrape and inoculate your agar with dehydrated mushrooms. So I've got some general supplies that you're going to need to do something like this. Of course you're going to need your tissue samples, and you're going to need a scalpel or surgical blades, petri dishes. I've got some melted agar that I'm waiting to come down to temperature, and some parafilm or porous tape, and of course isopropyl alcohol. You're also going to need some sort of flame or torch to sterilize your flame in between cutting clone tissue. So my agar is at about the right temperature, so I'm going to go ahead and get my glove box out and pour some of these dishes. This is the part that we have to get extremely clean. So I'm going to grab a paper towel and some alcohol. This is 70%, and I'm going to wipe down the surface and kind of the area that I'm going to be working with. Just making sure every spot and even every little tool that I might be working with, including the bottle of ISO itself, gets hit with a little bit of ISO. So now I've got my glove box here, and I'm going to go ahead and spray down the outside of that as well. Now the reason I sprayed the outside and now the area around it is because when I open it, I don't want any contaminated air or particulates to get into the box. So I'm getting another paper towel now, soaking it with isopropyl alcohol, and I'm going to wipe down my hands and all of the tools that I've worked with and that are going in the box. So most importantly, I'm not going to open this baggie of mushrooms inside the box because it's full of contaminants. So I'm going to spray the outside, and then I'm going to grab the tissue sample that I like the most. And they're not very thick. Some of them are, like this one's got some substance to it. But now you want to just spray the outsides of these down as well. Pretty good. And go ahead and set those down in there as well. So now that everything's in here nice and sterile, I'm going to open up this bag of dishes. I'm going to get my agar ready. Excuse the steam there. Lift and pour. Lift and pour. So that was enough agar for 3 dishes. Nice. So I'm going to let those come to room temp, and then we're going to inoculate them with some dehydrated mushroom. Okay, so now that our agar plates are set up, we're ready to make a inoculation with the dehydrated mushroom. So following all sterile procedure, you got to open up your blade, keep it in the pack, and get your handle on there gently. It can be easy to cut yourself with these gloves on, so be very careful. And once that's on, we're going to take this knife out of the box and sterilize it with our torch. We're also going to put a paper towel in there that's got some isopropyl alcohol on it. One thing about rehydrating these mushrooms is that the mushroom itself is going to be your highest point of contamination. There's kind of a trick and a technique that you want to use to expose the purest tissue, if you will. So you want to take your blade and slice towards an edge. I'm going to wipe my blade off here with the alcohol just in case. I'm going to find a nice thick point and cut. And you can kind of cut and tear. You just want to keep that internal tissue intact and not grab any of the tissue from the outside of the mushroom. So there's a nice sample there that I'm peeling off. I'm just going to open our first petri dish and drop it in. We're actually going to push it down into the agar a little bit to help with the reconstitution. So again, I'm going to find the thickest section of tissue and try to scrape away from the inside of that. Trying to minimize the amount of contact that the blade actually has with other tissue. So that's a nice piece right there. Careful about poking holes in your gloves. Wipe off our blade. We're going to tear away a chunk so that it exposes some of that internal tissue. I'm going to try to pluck out a chunk. Sometimes it works better to tear than to cut. Alright, we got a nice chunk there. Okay, so there's our plates. I have my parafilm outside of the box, so I'm just going to sterilize up and wrap them in parafilm and then label them, and that's basically all there is to it. You have to wait minimum of 4 days before you start seeing any growth, but up to a week and you'll start seeing a lot of colonization, and then you can potentially do transfers off of that. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, leave them down below.